So, my mother helped my sister steal my fiancé. Yep, just took him. He fell for her because she is who she is. But guys, don't worry, it did not end there. I decided to get some revenge. I'm going after my stepmother, and I'm not stopping until she's done. How far is too far when it comes to your family? How many chances can you give before you say enough is enough? I ask this because I know I'm not the only one who has to forgive bad behavior from family many times, all because there's no other choice. I care too much about being labeled a mean person, so I just tolerated a lot of the abuse from my mom. So maybe I am to blame for the fact that she tried to get my sister to steal my fiancé. All of this is not an isolated incident, where perhaps my mom was trying to get back at me, or she was showing her true colors. I call this woman Mom out of habit because she's the only mom I've ever known. She came into my life when I was 5 years old, with her own daughter the same age as me. She tried to treat me like her own child to such an extent that I did not know that I was not her child. Because of our age similarity, my sister and I did most things together, even dressing the same. The problem started when I hit puberty, and I suddenly did not listen to her anymore. Her own daughter was just the same as me, even more rebellious. But she was much quieter when she scolded her. She did not pinch her with nails that were like talons. It was just me. At the time, I believed that she was my bio mom since no one bothered to let me know she was my stepmom. They had hidden real mom's death from me for the fear that it would break my heart. So imagine when I was 16 having a big row with my mom because of something petty silly. Then she told me that I was an ungrateful person. I must have gotten those genes from my mom. She told me that just because my dad took my side nearly every time, it did not mean that I was grown up and knew everything. I knew nothing because my mom had died and left me. You know, it must take a special kind of cruelty to tell someone that they were useless because they did not have a mother. Those words she told me broke me when all I needed was for her to understand what I was going through. I needed her to be my mother, but she showed all the hatred she's been holding in for many years, and I felt like following the mother I never knew. Where was my father in all this, you may ask? Did he not see that this woman did not love me and that she was just waiting for me to leave her house? It did not matter what I said. They've been married for a long time. Longer than he's been with my biological mother. He told me about my mom, showed me her pictures, and apologized. He assured me that my stepmom was also my mom. She loved me, and she had said all that out of anger and told me that children cannot hold grudges against their parents. I grew up in a very religious home, so I knew that he was not lying. For the Bible said I had to honor my parents above all. I cannot begin to explain the change in my life since then, but my relationship with her has hit rock bottom, as we were always fighting. She adored my sister, who could never do any wrong in her eyes. Even when I did well in school, she did not seem to care, but she never mentioned my mother or spoke ill of her again. Not that it helped fill the void in my life or anything, but the void was only filled when I met Susannah, an older woman who owned a cafe close to my college. My friends and I were always at the cafe, and through exchange stories, we formed a good bond. She was the one I came to for any advice or when I just needed a hug. And soon she became a constant in my life. One day, I noticed a guy who kept staring at me, and he seemed to be working there. To my surprise, he revealed he knew my name when he came to take my order. I was a bit freaked out, so when I gave Susannah the help me stare, she came running over and she was very amused, informing me that the man was her son Samuel, who was visiting. Samuel and I hit it off really quickly, and well, we started dating. Though we knew that she had set us up, I feel like the fact that I knew his mom before dating him really helped our relationship, for she certainly knew a lot about him that he did not tell me. Susannah became like a mother figure to me. I would have loved for her to have been at my and Samuel's wedding. Samuel and I met when I was 20 and he was 22, but when I was 22 and had just started working, he proposed to me. I was that sure about him, so I said yes. But there was a problem. Susannah fell really ill, and within a few weeks she passed away. Both of us took it very hard, but for Samuel, it was like a dark cloud that refused to lift had fallen over him, and there was not much I could do. When he heard of her passing, he was in denial for a very long time. Then reality caught up with him. He could not eat nor sleep. I could see that it was negatively impacting his mental health, and it killed me that there was nothing much more I could do. Even though I was not related to her, her death left me feeling numb and angry about how unfair life could be. So imagine what it was like for her son. I did not even know it at the time, but she was the glue that held a lot of us together. Even Samuel and me. I forced him to go to therapy and get help for his sleeping problems, but not much could be done. His therapist could not legally share a lot with me, but she asked me to convince him to stay home for a few days. At the time, I was already staying home with him. His ideas since he was working and I was not really on my feet yet. My family stayed in the same town, barely a 20-minute walk from my house, so I regularly had to go there for family events. My stepmom and I might have had our differences, but Sam was the very first guy I dated she liked. She liked him way more than she liked me, which was funny considering our history. I did not think too much of it as I have this terrible flaw of seeing the world through a rose-colored glass. This was the reason I had started over with my stepmom and sister, even though they've screwed me over more times than I could count. Either way, my whole family knew about Susannah's death, and they did attend the funeral. My stepmom was very supportive of him, offering anything to help. He told me about it, but I did not put it in my mind because, well, she did not really help anyone but herself. But then, when his mental health started to take a toll, and he's been home for 3 weeks already, she started sending Rhiannon, my sister, with food for him. The two of them would come to the house while I was at work, and I would start seeing signs that someone's been in my space. He was uncommunicative towards me, and seeing as I did not want to mentally strain him, I left him be. But there seemed to be no progress. He was still cold and emotionless and did not leave the couch, even to go outside and get some sun. Little did I know that it was not that he was not improving. It was that he did not have time nor energy for me. When my sister, who suddenly had an interest in hanging out at my house, showed up, he suddenly lit up. In the beginning, I felt that it was just a problem with my sight, but she seemed to always be laughing at his bad dad jokes. I felt like a third wheel most of the time when she was in the house. I did not feel great to know that she was, quote, supporting him, emotionally as she claimed. My boyfriend, on the other hand, told me that she was being like a sister to him, and I would not understand how it felt. I asked how, since I was the one most likely to understand because my mom passed away as well. He said some hurtful things, but the one that remained with me on that day was this. You did not even know your mom, so how does it hurt? Of which, I told him where to get off. I left the house in a fit of rage and to go to my stepmom and stepsis, who were both staying with my dad. I warned both of them to never come to my house ever again. They tried to act innocent as if I was the crazy one, saying that they would never disrespect me like that. Remember how I said that Susannah held her relationship together? Well, without her, my relationship went to hell. He was not working anymore, so he could not contribute to the household. Instead, he said he was taking a break from his mental health, but he would never be at home. He would go out and come back late in the evening with no explanation and get mad at me if I started asking questions. I could sense a shift in his energy, and I knew that it had everything to do with my sister. Sure enough, I came back home one day to find that he's taken all his stuff. When I checked my messages, I saw that he sent me a long message, telling me that things with me just did not feel right, and that he's fallen for someone else. And well, he felt it was just better to do it this way, so there was less pain and drama. That very day, he posted a relationship status updating with her, and also pictures of their new apartment. It hurt like hell. I was angry and in disbelief, and I just felt so blindsided. I'd noticed the flirting. He had shown that he was not so comfortable with her getting close to him, so why had I missed the clues? He started to get back to work, and they kept on posting on social media. Every time I opened it, there they were. Though I was very angry and betrayed by the whole situation, I'd known for several months now that, well, it was probably over. He did not care for me. Instead, she's won. She managed to seduce him. The pieces all came together when they were dating, and I could not keep the situation off my mind. The only person I could think of who would make this happen was my stepmom. She was constantly praising him for what a gentleman he was and how hardworking he was. He was nothing like the losers that my sister usually dated, so I'm sure she decided to take advantage of his vulnerability and send her daughter to seduce him. I was dealing with work stress and my own grief, so I wasn't really there most of the time while the affair was happening. The only thing I was worried about was how I was going to tell my father. He really liked Sam. My dad was out of town when the whole relationship shift happened, but as soon as he came back, he called me to talk about the whole thing and about my feelings. He was very upset over the whole thing, saying he was going to order her to break up with him, but I told him no. I was just so tired of the constant drama and fighting, and I did not even have the proof that it's been a ploy by my stepmom. I thought I was doing okay and I would recover. But 2 months later, they announced their engagement. In the same month when I was supposed to get married to him. I just could not anymore. I needed some sort of solace, and I needed to make them both pay. I'm thinking revenge. I knew my stepmom had been the one to take my sister to go there in the first place, but I did not know how she had done it, nor did I have any proof. I did not mention it to my dad because he still thought that she could do no wrong. So then I decided to dig up some dirt on her, just enough to show my dad that she was the reason I was no longer going to get married. If only it would be enough for the rest of the family to see that snake my stepmom was, and stop thinking there was something wrong with me. But what motivated me was the fact that I knew she had a secret. Seeing I was not as clueless as I acted most of the time, there were times I caught her texting someone and then looking around to see if anyone was looking. At the time, I had my own relationship problems, so I did not even bother with her. When it came to her, I was prepared to find something nasty. I just didn't know how explosive her secret was. So I made the sacrifice of using some of my hard-earned savings. I hired a private investigator. I had money Dad gave me monthly to help with expenses, but since I had a job, I just saved that money for a rainy day. So while my stepmom was going crazy and bragging to everyone who could hear that her daughter's getting married, I was plotting her downfall. I was expecting to be the supportive sister, to just not care that the man I loved was getting married to someone that's been taking from me ever since I was little. I needed my mom, or Susannah, to come give me a big ol' hug right now because it's just all too much for me. I waited anxiously for the private investigator to tell me what he's found, hoping it would be very bad. And well, my private investigator did deliver because a week later, he had pictures of my stepmother booking a bus out of town, going to a motel, and yeah, meeting up with a man. There were several days when she completed this very same routine and met this man. The private investigator did some research on the man and found out that he was one of my father's business friends, and that the affair looked to have been going on for several years. I was not surprised that she was having an affair. She was conniving and selfish, spending my father's money while betraying him on the side. Getting her back for what she's done to me? It's going to feel so darn good. Almost making me feel less sad that I was no longer married, or I should say, getting married. I went to my dad to show him the pictures and videos that showed that she was indeed cheating on him, on a day that I knew she would not be home. Now, who knows, maybe she could have gone to visit her lover once again. Either way, she had a gigantic surprise waiting for her when she came back, because my father and I packed all her bags for her. She could not even come up with a valid excuse for where she's been. Then she resorted to apologizing to my dad, but he did not want to hear it. He told her to leave his house, never come back, and that he's divorcing her. She was poisonous, and he should have thrown her out a long time ago. I supported my father's decision to divorce her, but I was worried about the legal things, especially with him being the spouse with more money. But he reassured me that when they got married, he made her sign a prenuptial agreement. He did that mainly because at that time, he just wanted a mother for me. And he knew she was after a luxurious life, even though she loved him. So, to protect me if anything should happen, he made her sign a prenuptial agreement that would only be void if he cheated on her. The divorce was rather quick. Even though she tried to drag it on, my father did not have to pay her a single cent. So now she was alone, without a home, and the joke of the town. As for the other two, I have no idea what they're up to these days because I blocked them on social media. I've made my peace with the matter, and it's time to move on. Well, it honestly seems like the stepmother of this story was an evil stepmother. Guys, let me know your thoughts about this one in the comment section down below. The good thing about this story, it seems karma came swiftly for the stepmom. Unfortunately, OP still lost her long-lost boyfriend, and it doesn't seem like that's ever gonna change. But hey, at least she got one of them back. Let me know your thoughts about it, guys, and we'll turn our attention to the final story. Am I the a-hole for evicting my nephew and niece from my apartment after discovering they were behind a series of prank calls my wife and I received? I'm 38 male, and I let my nephew, who's Nick, 20, and his sister Sadie, 18, move into my old apartment to stay at rent-free and focus on college. This is not a new thing because I've always been close to them and helped them and their parents, my brother and his deceased wife. The situation started when my wife and I found out that my wife's pre-existing health issues had made her become infertile. This was so devastating for the whole family, not just us. My wife told me about a series of calls she received via landline. She said the caller would just play a recording of baby noises and phrases like, "Mama," every single time. We'd get at least 4 to 5 calls a day, and I've listened to the last 2 of them. All have the same baby sounds. We figured it was someone mocking my wife's fertility issues, but did not know who it was because, well, we've told a lot of people about it. I told this to my friend, and he was able to identify the caller as my nephew Nick. Then my niece Sadie. I was in shock, and it took me for some time to actually believe what I was told. After it was confirmed, I just had a breakdown and went over to the apartment and confronted them. They denied it till I threatened to evict them. They said they did it as a prank that was directed at my wife, not me, and they thought it was going to get her to laugh or something. I called them ducking idiots because not only my wife did not laugh, but she cried her eyes out every time we got those awful calls. I told them I want them out of my ducking apartment, and I gave them eviction papers. They freaked out and started pleading with me till I left. They had my brother call me later to ask what was going on. I told him and started apologizing on their behalf, saying they were kids just messing around, not realizing what they were doing. He went on about how evicting them will affect them and him since he's struggling with his own situation. I said, hey, I know you're a widower. He's struggling, but my decision will stand. He started begging me to let it go and promised to have Nick and Sadie grovel with apologies. But I refused. Now my parents got involved, saying the kid's dad is choosing to have nothing to do with them if they get evicted, and said that the kids look up to me, and I should not let what happened ruin the relationship we have. Okay, so the top comment, I'm going to read that because I agree with it. Not the a-hole. Sorry, any reasonable 18 and 20-year-olds would know this was not a funny prank. They did not get to live rent-free in your space while simultaneously being cruel to your wife. Exactly, guys. These people went and messed up everything they had. A free place to live right next to their college so they can save up all the money they need, and they decided to do this cruel, insensitive, extremely toxic phone prank. It wasn't even a funny one. Guys, drop your thoughts about that one in the comment section down below. Do not forget to subscribe if you're new here, and I'll catch you in the next one. Have a wonderful day.